tuning in today, everyone. I just want to let you know my book is out and available on Amazon and Barnes& Noble. The name is Parents, Our Greatest Teachers. And now, back to our episode.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Alex Valgood, and this is Leap of Health. And today we have Angela Jensen from Denmark. Are you in Denmark?
Yes, but not in
Yes.
Copenhagen, in the
Oh, okay.
countryside, 3 hours, probably closer to Germany than Copenhagen.
Yeah, so this is amazing because we're recording from the States. So I always love to talk to people like super far away because this is like the magic of the internet. And today we're going to be talking about eczema, which is like a super important topic nowadays because I think it's more common, which is kind of not that great that, it's becoming common. Angela studied biomedical science. She's originally from Australia. She has a law degree and recently completed a certification in Circadian Health with a quantum biology collective. So, and those are some of our friends too. So I love that. This is amazing. I think we all should keep on always being a student. I think it's always helpful for people, for healers, coaches, and all that. And before we start talking about eczema, because that's like a huge topic, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you went from a lawyer to a health coach now.
Well, yes, I grew up in Australia, and it's like a little bit of a romantic story because I went to Copenhagen on exchange, and it was supposed to be one semester. And then, to my parents' shock, I found myself a Danish prince, and we met quite early and fell in love. And I loved riding bikes in Copenhagen. And I ended up staying for a whole year. And I studied law in Copenhagen. But the whole time I'd been also studying a dual degree in biomedical science. And it's like science was my first passion. And that just carried me as well with my legal career to work in a pharmaceutical company. I worked in a Danish company called Novo Nordisk, almost 9 years in their in-house legal department. I traveled the world with this company. It was amazing. We lived in Dubai and South Africa and Switzerland, and learned so much about the world and different people and beautiful career. Then, we fell pregnant, fortunately, in Dubai. And, becoming a parent is not easy. And I still don't think we were prepared for how challenging it would be. And especially on top of that, our first child, we have three now, but our first child had very severe eczema, and his skin was already quite red when he was born. But at about the 6 week mark, we traveled to my family's home in Australia for my maternity leave. It just started to get even worse. And, almost to the point that it was like oozing. It was very open skin. And obviously he was in a lot of pain, and it was just everything was harder. Naps were harder, changing clothes and nappies were harder. And then as he grew, he obviously started to roll over, and he could reach his own legs with his fingernails. And so he would actually damage his own skin from scratching. And, we were trying to solve this problem. And because of my career traveling around, we actually managed to see doctors in 5 continents. So pretty amazing to have a perspective on how doctors in different countries are approaching the same illness. And sadly, our experience was not very satisfying. We did get a lot of help, and doctors spent a lot of time talking with us, but the results of the suggestions were never enough. And my husband was staying at home with our son when I returned to work, and he did a lot of research into health and eczema. And he actually is an engineer, but he's always had a very big interest in personal development and personal training and health. And he is one of like the original people, I think, wearing blue blockers, you know, since like more than 10 years ago. And probably not, you know, there were probably people a long time, but he had like those really, the Uvex ones that were $10. And so for him, everything started to fall into place with when we finally found quantum health or quantum biology to explain eczema and how to, you know, overcome eczema in a natural and sustainable way.
Nice.
So
that's amazing. I mean, you guys, and it's pretty cool too, because a lot of people don't get that opportunity to talk to different 5 perspectives from around the world. And I think that's huge because it really teaches you how they're seeing illness, how they're going about healing. And I'm glad you find some alternative in between all these doctors. So it's pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about how you start healing your son. How did that go?
Well, there was one doctor. He's actually a longevity doctor. You might have heard of him. He's Dr. Jack Cruz. He is a quantum health or a quantum biology expert. And my husband was signed up to his community, and we just read a lot of his materials because he's bringing together 2 worlds of science. He's bringing together physics, but together with biology. And you're probably thinking, what has this got to do with solving a little child's eczema? But it's actually the missing link for us. It was the answer. And what have we done? Well, we had to change our perspective actually, because the old paradigm, or it's the current paradigm, but for us, it's the old way of seeing eczema. But the current paradigm is that eczema is genetic or partly genetic, and that it's all about testing for triggers, of discovering triggers. It could be a detergent. It could be taking an allergy test, like on the child's back, and you prick test for different allergens. It could be, the approach could also be basically just applying steroid creams, or there's also some creams that are immunosuppressant. And now, I mean, I'm not in the world of looking for treatments because we are through it, we have overcome it in this way. But I understand there's other injectables now, and have read some of the leaflets to understand their actions and the side effects. And it's a lot to do with blocking parts of the immune system. And I mean, it gets part of the way, and in the main paradigm, the mainstream way of solving it, there is one option for UV therapy, but it's under supervision. So that's like a little clue. But mainly our new paradigm took us into basically a whole new world of seeing health, but specifically for us solving eczema was that yes, the immune system is involved in eczema. We had to address that the immune system was overacting or overreacting to triggers. But if we constantly were trying to solve the triggers, we would never really solve the immune system issue. So it's like it had been switched. And I discovered, with the help of a lot of people and reading books, that there's research on this, but it's almost living in 2 separate silos. There's research that tells us that in eczema, the T cell is deprogrammed. And then there's research over in another silo that tells us that T cells are activated and deprogrammed by blue light. But no one is telling us to pay attention to light and eczema.
Right.
So we started going into this rabbit hole of light and eczema. And so we have a hypothesis that we have been testing for over 5 years now, that the underlying trigger, or this chronic trigger specifically for our son, is blue light. And blue light is the frequency that we find in indoor lighting.
Mm-hmm.
So to conduct our experiment, when we moved into our new home 5 years ago from November, we moved into a home and never installed lighting. And so we have been conducting like a real world, real life experiment. Basically, it's not harmful. There's no, we haven't added anything. We've just taken away something that's artificial. And after about 6 months, we have a son with no eczema. And we're almost wondering, maybe the outbreak will come, maybe the flare up will come, because this is what all the doctors say, is that the prognosis is it's a chronic disease. In our case, the doctors told us we should expect to have this for life, because my mother also had eczema, and that our job is to increase the time between flare-ups. So we thought, we're doing a really good job right now. Maybe a flare-up will come. No flare-up, no flare-up. Then we get a funny event, not funny, but a very interesting event where our son was attending a kindergarten, and over a 1-week holiday, the kindergarten changed some hanging lamps out with very much stronger lighting, which resembles a little bit like a hospital lighting, where there's these square lights.
Yeah.
And it's very, every second meter, light. And the kindergarten at 8 a.m. in October, it was just like so bright through the windows. It was brighter than the middle of the day at that time of the year. And we have our son come home after 1 day, and then finally we pulled him out after the 3 days. But from the sleeve mark down and from the collar up, he had flared up.
Wow.
And then that spread to his body by the 3rd day. And for us, it was a small but very significant proof that something we had been doing with the lights had helped him. And maybe we'd been avoiding a couple of years of eczema flare-ups by living so clean in terms of our light environment.
Mm-hmm.
And this event, because of this event, we wanted to ask the kindergarten if there was any possibility to reverse their lighting. And it was at this point that I felt very inadequate for being able to explain why light is important for eczema. And I think he finished at kindy the next spring, so it was over fairly quickly. But it was very interesting for me to realize that I actually had a passion for explaining, but I needed to acquire more vocabulary for being able to explain why light is so important for health, because I think it could really help a lot of people.
Yes.
And going back to that paradigm, I learned also that creams are not the answer either, and that there's some different daily habits that we can do to strengthen the body, our children's bodies, and program the immune system by both avoiding these blue lights, the unopposed artificial blue lights, but also introducing habits that bring back the full spectrum of light. Mm-hmm. And this can be one of the most important habits for us has been going outside in the morning every day and having a little sunrise ritual, mm-hmm. where we sing a little song and we just start the day outside. And this is super important because the sun's rays are actually informing your circadian rhythm, what time of the day it is, to prepare hormones, even in the morning already. So the hormones that are prepared in the morning are the melatonin, which is so important for sleep, healing, recovery, and melatonin is very tightly interwoven with eczema in the literature. And then the morning sun has also prepared the body to be in the UVB light, which is the light that builds vitamin D in our bodies. And vitamin D is the other main big hormone that is so closely interlinked with eczema. You'll find there's studies that demonstrate that eczema severity goes up with latitude in the northern hemisphere and up with further latitude south in the southern hemisphere. So it's very important to pay attention to vitamin D and melatonin. And how do you take care of these hormones? It's through the light environment.
Yeah, I love that. I think we just in general, we forget to even like go outside. And we are so tied to our chairs at the office, at work. We're always exposed to blue light like 24/7. What are some, I know you mentioned you don't have artificial light in your house. What are some of the things that you do for light?
Well, in Denmark, we're at 55 or 52 degrees north, quite high. And so we have very long summer days, and light is not necessary to have in our home. And in the winter, we use candles because there is actually a chart that describes how much melatonin suppression different light sources cause. And if you look at candlelight, it's a 2% suppression. The lights, like at the kindergarten, have an 80% suppression. And then incandescent light bulbs are 20%. So
yes.
we have chosen candle lights, but because we are living such in a natural rhythm and waking up and watching the sunrise, our bodies want to sleep when it gets dark. And so we don't need to use candles a lot, just for a few hours in the evening. And then we're naturally sleepy. And I concentrate on putting my productive work during light hours with the children and accepting and surrendering to the sleep that my body needs instead of trying to squeeze more productivity out of the evening. I found some interesting information that NASA is interested in the circadian rhythm as well, because the astronauts on the International Space Station, they orbit around the Earth every 90 minutes. And so this means that they see the sunrise 16 times. And yeah, I know, it's crazy. Their circadian rhythms are a mess.
Yes.
And they have health problems as a consequence.
Of course.
And they are trying to figure out how to change the light environment to support them in having a better circadian rhythm. And I thought it was, we also have statistics about shift workers. You know, they have some serious risks with this lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you know, there are statistics about the shift workers' health problems with higher rates of heart issues and cancer as well. And I just suddenly realized that the modern lifestyle with looking at the phone and knowing that the blue light coming out of the phone is the same as solar noon, that means that every time you're turning the phone on at night and flashing your body, your neck, with that blue light, you are actually subjecting yourself to the same occupational hazards as the astronauts and the shift workers. So we almost have a modern society facing a lot of issues, health issues, because of light.
Yeah, for sure. I think our lifestyles, I mean, computers, cell phones, lights. I've heard of the incandescent lights, and I've been thinking of like switch some of my lights, because now that I've been talking to a lot of experts, now I have realized how strong the lights are. And I mean, I've been using blue blockers or, on my
Yeah.
glasses for
Yeah.
probably about 11 years or 12 years. But I noticed that with the computers, I couldn't really do any work on the computer for a long time because my eyes and my head were like, just, I couldn't handle it. And so 11, 12 years ago now, I went to my doctor and I was like, I can't work on the computer. And I don't know if that was the time the blue blockers for prescription glasses came up. I'm not sure of the timing, but she was like, oh, there's this thing that now people are using. It's like a filter for your glasses. Maybe we should try that. And she told me that 11, 12 years ago now. And since then, I've been using blue blockers and they have helped me amazingly. But
That's
as you say,
awesome.
yes, but as you said, there's a lot of things that it's not just the computer, because, sometimes I do computer, at work, at home, and I put my glasses, but then I don't, it's not as strong as if when I look at the phone. So sometimes I don't have my glasses when I'm looking at the phone. And you're totally right. We're turning on the phone on and off throughout the whole day, all the time. And we have like these lights and stuff that we're not even aware. Because you notice this because you had an actual problem within your home, which was eczema. But a lot of people don't have that, but they don't know they actually are also harming their body going through all this blue light. So
yeah, people are trying so hard with diet and exercise and trying to discover, this optimum health. But if you don't have the light right, I don't really understand how you can achieve optimal health, because it's changing the expression of your genes and your hormones are changing under the effect of the light. It's quite amazing. You also have to remember, even personally with yourself, you're changing the light that enters your eyes, but you're not changing what's touching your skin. And your skin is also a receptor. Just like I said, the T cells in the skin, they are a receptor for the light. And something else that I ended up becoming a bit of a nerd about during this process of learning was the mitochondria. So in the cells, everyone should understand that the body is made up of cells like bricks, like the building blocks of our body and our organs and all the tissues in us. Inside all the cells, except the red blood cells, we have this little organelle, a mini organ called the mitochondria. There can be thousands of them. And normally in biology, we learn that the mitochondria, they are the powerhouse of the cell. And then you start learning the other organelles. That's sort of what you learn. But I think the mitochondria are really, really important in eczema as well, because mitochondria are responsible also for making a very special type of water in the cell. And because eczema manifests as a disease of dry skin, dry, itchy skin, we need to make sure that the processes in our body and in our child's body are able to produce water. And water is created in the assembly line in the mitochondria, where the mitochondria draw in electrons and then they spit out ATP, the energy, water, and carbon dioxide, which is why we breathe out carbon dioxide, because the mitochondria produce it in its little factory. And the water that's produced needs electrons coming in. And I also discovered through all of this learning that I need to give my baby electrons. And it's like, there's certain things that are electron depleting, the lights, and there's certain things that are electron giving, the morning sun, for example, but also being in touch with the ground with our bare feet. So another element of our daily habits is earthing, and basically collecting this unlimited supply of electrons, fueling our mitochondria so that they can produce this lovely water. And the water that's produced in the mitochondria is actually a special structured type of water. Some people describe it as like crystalline or gel-like. But what's kind of magic about this water is that it excludes toxins. It's actually called exclusion zone or EZ water, but it excludes toxins. So another tick in the box for me, this is very relevant for eczema because we don't want toxins through that thin skin barrier. We want to have all of our processes in our body functioning properly. Mm-hmm. And then I also learned that the mitochondria get stretched, and this little assembly line loses electrons because it gets stressed and stretched out. And then those electrons don't make the energy, they don't make that good water. And then do you know what they make? Free radicals, which is another oxidative stress on our body. And we also see in the literature about eczema that it's linked to oxidative stress. So I see babies with eczema as babies that need support with their mitochondria, especially in their skin and their immune system, the T cells. And to do that, I've created a program, but I have like a list of steps or habits that we do to nourish our mitochondria and nourish our skin from the inside out, instead of, applying and taking
right. No, this is great. And a lot of the things that you do for eczema, they're like natural. Like you don't have to buy the sun or you don't have to buy the land. I mean, like you could just go outside of the park and do some of those processes that you do as just, walk at the park barefoot and get some of those energy from the earth and ground yourself. So it's a lot of really cool things. It's like pretty much, I always talk in the podcast about going back to our roots, going back to our, the way we used to or meant to live, which it was not in a box for 8 hours or 24 hours. Sometimes we should definitely remind ourselves that we are creatures to be outside.
Absolutely. We've become so separated from nature that we almost forget that we are natural beings, that we are animals, and that we were born with bare feet, not with rubber-soled shoes, for a reason. Because we were given, we're not plants, we're not rooted down, we can walk, so we can go and get food, but we also need to walk barefoot because that's how we've been designed. And I put it into perspective, like I think it was 1.45 billion years ago that this little mitochondria was engulfed. It's a theory, but the theory is that it was engulfed inside the eukaryotic cell. And it has been acting as like a sensor to the environment for us, for our type of cell, for probably 1.5 billion years. And then we see, like, it 5 million years ago that we have a common ancestor, probably again with the chimpanzees. So even, we're not that old in the big evolution scale of the universe, but then still 5 million years, and then you discover that there's evidence only 790,000 years ago that humans discovered firelight. So that seems like a long time ago, but that's actually fairly recent. Mm-hmm. And then what's even more recent is it's only 150 years since the modern lights were invented. So it's just this speck of time in the very long scale. Do you really think that our cells and our mitochondria have adapted to these signals every day? I don't think so. And I think it's actually makes sense that they would be in a chaotic kind of place, that we'd be uncoupled from the rhythms that we're supposed to be following. But having said that, I think the body's amazing ability to bounce back. Just if you think about jet lag, when you travel, you can adapt to a new time zone in a day, maybe, in the worst cases, up to a week with a small lag, but you can adapt pretty quickly in 24 hours to a new time zone. And I think that just shows that we are flexible and that we're able to adapt. But I don't think that we're able to adapt to the blue light for some reason. The body needs to be able to sleep and run, the autophagy. This is an apoptosis. These are the cleaning and repair processes that our body needs to run. It cannot run those after being exposed to blue light. And so it takes a longer time for your body to enter those processes, and then it's morning again. And so a good analogy that I learned from the circadian certification was that it's like the dishwasher doesn't get run properly at night, and you wake up and then you open the dishwasher and nothing's been washed.
Yeah.
So we need to support our body's processes.
Yeah, I think just really remembering that there's certain things that our body still needs to do, which is like repairing. We need to sleep, we need light, we need grounding ourselves to to get actually our body to work properly. I think it's super important to keep on reminding us. What are some of the things that I know not everybody that is listening can just go into like, let's live with candles and go to the countryside as you do, which is beautiful. Which is beautiful. I love it. But being realistic, and for everybody that listens to me, I mean, I have people in Australia, India, Africa. Shout out to all these countries that actually listen to me. Thank you.
Hi.
Canada,
Awesome.
as far as Colombia and Chile. There's all these very different experiences of living, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners cannot just feel like, well, let me move tomorrow to the countryside and start using candles.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, as much as a lot of us will love to do that, we are kind of like still in this system where we need to go to work, we need to take care of our kids, we need to take the kids to kindergarten or school or whatever it is, and we're constantly exposed to this light. What are some of the things that you can maybe like give us a couple of tips on minimizing this exposure to blue light?
Yeah, well, I would concentrate and work on most within your closest range, because distance is your friend as well when it comes to quantum physics, because the effect of a point source of light and any frequency, it dissipates with distance. So you don't want to be super close to the source. And there's different tools as well. So we were talking about the mobile phone as a source of blue light before. You can download an app called Iris on both your screen or your phone. There's also a shortcut on Androids and iPhones. For my iPhone, I can press 3 times on the home button and it gives me an option to turn on color filters. And you can manage those color filters to mimic the degree of blue light there is at that time of day. You've also mentioned blue blockers. You could implement habits so that when you're inside and it's very blue lit, that you wear like a high-necked shirt, especially if you're pregnant and you have had a baby with eczema and you want to try to see what you can do to avoid having another baby with eczema. Our second and third child didn't have eczema. And having, instead of, smoke breaks, you could have sunshine breaks every day or earthing breaks. Yes. And open up the window, because a crack in the window lets photons through, which are not linear, they spread. And so your little clocks and your main clock will detect this input and support your hormones like the melatonin for sleep and repair. And the melatonin is also an antioxidant that's made in your retina, it's made in your pineal gland, but it's also made in your mitochondria, and it doesn't leave the mitochondria. So it's there to manage those free radicals that are produced there. But you need it to be there to actually manage them. Right. And I think there's light bulbs. you talked about incandescent light bulbs, you've been considering them.
Yeah.
They are a huge improvement compared to regular LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of fine details and like quantum details about the lights, because there's also a flicker that we are avoiding by just using candle lights, because of the current of the electricity is actually causing the light bulb or the screen to flicker a little bit, just undetected for your conscious brain, but it's actually being detected and causing stress.
Wow.
You didn't,
I've never
because
heard of that.
you know
Yeah.
how it's called alternating current electricity?
Right. Yes.
And there's also direct current, but everyone has alternating current. That means it's going on, off, on, off, on, off.
Right.
And so the light, have you ever seen a video of a light bulb and it's sort of flashing, or
Yes.
a TV screen and it's flashing? Yeah, because it's sort of slowed down and captured. That's actually a subtle stressor. And so yeah, there's always like this little disclaimer or a downside or a detail, and the details are really important. So in my program, I make sure that all of these details are included so that people can decide what they're ready for. And I understand that not everyone is ready to take the leap, but hopefully, you know, you make a small change and you feel good about it, and you're getting so many benefits from it that you've nailed that, and then you're ready to make another small change. I think I provide our example of 5 years without installing lights not to be some impossible, example, like unattainable, model family, but actually just to show that the experiment has some evidence in it that making small changes will also be benefiting you. Mm-hmm. And it's also like, what do you think would be better? Seeing the sunrise for half an hour on a Saturday morning, because that's, when you have time to do your solid half-hour sunrise, or would it be better to see the sunrise every day instead for 2 minutes? What do you think is better?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe seeing it for 2 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. So it's these small inputs for our brain and for our circadian rhythm that count. So you don't need to be perfect occasionally. That's no use. Better off just being, a little dose of sunrise here every day, and go barefoot just to collect the mail, and you're just collecting just a little bit every day.
Yeah, for sure.
And fueling those systems. So I think if that's easier for people to implement, definitely just do a little bit every day.
Yes. And I have a question about this light. Now I'm intrigued. So is it just better to, I know you don't have light as much as everybody in the world, but we have all these appliances and everything. Do you have appliances at home? Like,
yeah,
refrigerator and all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
With no light bulb in the fridge, yeah.
I see.
We also have, just as an example for the people who can see the video, we have this electrical tape.
Yeah.
And we've put it wherever there's a small source of light.
How does that help?
Because even a small, say if I'm at home, I'm not wearing my blue blockers because we have no light, and then I open the fridge door at 8 p.m, the sun has already gone down, and then I open up the door, and then that big bright light, it actually suppresses my melatonin again.
Oh, okay.
And tells my brain, oh, it's the morning, or it's the middle of the day.
Right.
And so that release, it causes a whole sequence of signaling to happen, to basically prepare me, maybe even stress me, prepare me for a stressful situation when I'm actually supposed to be preparing for rest.
Yeah. And
this can even be like a tiny dot on the power of the computer.
Okay.
So I know that Dave Asprey, the Headstrong Bulletproof Coffee guy, he has stickers called True Dark, and he sells like a page of stickers exactly for that purpose. So you can go around your house and find all those little sources of light so that you actually make your room or your house dark, true dark.
Okay. That's that's super helpful because I mean I cannot tell you. I mean you could see on my screen where it's looking at. I have tons
Wow.
of screens. Yes,
High-tech.
and here at my house too. We also do morning trading. So we have like I want to say 6 screens that we look in the morning, like at 6 in the morning, that we're like actually seeing at this, and they're huge, like huge screens in front of us because we're looking at the charts and everything that's happened in the world. And how damaging is that to to be looking at 6 screens, all they're super bright, and at 6 in the morning, it's quite terrible because we do all these things unconsciously because we're being predisposed and trained to be in this comfortable way of living, to do certain things that we just see normal at this point.
Yeah, it's a dilemma, isn't it? Almost a dilemma for the whole entire human race, because all of us work in offices. I mean, it's a dilemma for me how to raise our children and how to encourage them into a healthy life in the future. But what I'm hoping for our children is that we give them such a robust childhood that they can make healthy decisions and cope with the world that they grow into.
Yeah.
But it's really important what we do for them while they're little,
For sure.
in the first 7 years especially.
It gave me chills just you saying it about our future. It's true. It's like super important. And I know with your kids, they're still little. What are some of the things that you try to teach them when it comes to, like, how do you explain that to a kid? Being that now, I mean, I don't have kids myself, but I see all the people around me that has kids. They have, I don't even know how to call this, but they give the iPad to their kids to kind of like calm them down. But it's doing the opposite in a really crazy way, and we don't see that. What are some of the things that we, if you will be talking to parents to help them with small kids that they don't have the vocabulary and the language to understand everything that we want to tell them?
Yeah, well, I think for us, our children are growing up 3, 5, and 7 years old, so you can imagine that how they understand. And it's been lead by example, basically, to start with. This is the way our family lives. They don't know much different. They see their family, friends, and the community, but they accept that that's the way we do it in our family because that's the way mum and dad do it. We role model how we would like them to live. And then as the kids have gotten bigger, their friends at football might have a mobile phone. So we've started to talk to our oldest son about the light. And one of the things that a lot of kids understand these days is what junk food is. Right. So we use that concept to talk about what junk light is. That there's junk light and there's, nourishing, healthy light. My son, he likes to draw cartoons and comics. And actually only 3 weeks ago, he challenged me to like, Mom, you have 24 hours to do a comic and Dad is going to judge whose is the best. And so I sit down and I'm like, right, I'm going to do my comic. And then I've got all of my SHIFT ECZEMA program out, and I've been thinking I need to make a program for kids to understand. And I think, okay, I'm going to do the comic. And so I start, writing down all the ideas, and he provided me with the book, a blank book. Here, this is what you've got to write the comic in.
That's great.
I don't have it here, but I wrote a comic, and then I have Canva, this design program for my Instagram posts, and I found out that there's also a comic strip template. And so I put my comic into a Canva design and then printed it out, and my son, he read it 4 times. And I said, did you know all of it? And he's like, almost, but I didn't know about melatonin. And now he knows about vitamin D. And he came up with a lot of good questions and observations. And I mean, it's not a comic in that there's characters in a storyline, but it's more like an educational comic where the son talks to a child and the child says something about what they get from the sun. I can send it to you.
Yes,
it's also on my Instagram profile. But talking to them every day, but also not making a big deal out of it either, because I don't want them to grow up worried or anything. But we talk about that when we're earthing, we're collecting up electrons. And when we are in the sun, we're soaking up the photons. And I try to just put a little bit of vocabulary in, but that's because I'm a nerd about it. And that's not really normal for other parents, I suppose. But I think our kids are really clever, and, it makes sense to them that the sun that we've evolved under has it gives you warmth, it makes you feel happy, and maybe it also helps you make your skin really nice too.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you tell to your kids, or what would you tell your kids if they ever are like, I want a mobile phone, or I want an iPad, or all these things that, our culture, every kid has it. Every, parent buys it for their kids. How would you go about that?
Well, I feel quite strongly about it. So we've already decided that our children won't have mobile phones until, I don't know exactly, but even Jack Kruse, he says that a child's brain is not fully myelinated until they're 25. But I don't think it's practical, because children in Denmark basically gain a lot of independence already from the age of 16 legally. So it's probably around that point. And I mean, we've already said to our kids, you're not going to be the kids with the mobile phones. Yeah. And then because they're so young, they can repeat back to us why. Yeah, that's because of this. So they're quite accepting. But I have also, tried to look into it for my clients as well. And I've found different resources for parents, especially in America. There's some really, really great movements. It's not always based on the effect of the light on the phone, a little bit about the addiction and the dopamine, but there's also a little bit about the pornography and the pedophilia. But these movements are equally useful for our community, because one of them is called Wait Until Eighth Grade, where parents have resources together where they can present it to their other parents and ask, do you want to wait until 8th with us? Here, sign this. And it's sort of like you sign to signify and officialize your commitment for your child to be smartphone free until that grade. And this petition, or what you sign, doesn't mean that you're not going to give them a Nokia with that black screen, but it's about the smartphone and the access to the internet, and from our perspective, the blue lit screen. But again, it's raising them to be capable of making these decisions when their frontal lobe is ready to make decisions that have this impact on their health and their future, raising them to be able to consider all of these risks. But also at one point, I will need to be able to sit back and allow our children to make mistakes, to feel their bodies when they make certain decisions. I will not be able to control their lives or their environment. So that's okay and we will do our best to inform them. I think children and teenagers can take in this information. The way that I communicate it is, I think it should be able to be understood, and give them a chance to read some of these ideas. I've read some reviews from teenagers doing a Screen Strong challenge, another resource in America, Screen Strong challenge, and teenagers have written some reviews, and they're just so positive about basically going cold turkey on their mobile phones. And they're like, what a relief. They can't handle the pressure of being online and looking good for their selfies and being witty and clever. I'm so glad I grew up without this pressure. And these teenagers who write the reviews, it just gives me tingles, and I think I'm doing the right thing. And I've read other things that is highly motivating for me, like adults writing, I wish my mom had taught me to hunt instead of buying me an Xbox or a PlayStation. And they wish in retrospect, even though that same person was the child that begged for it. And so I try to see my children as two different parts of themselves. There's the immediate gratification and nagging and wanting to be the same as their friends and have all of the latest tools and gadgets. And then there's the other boy that I have who's going to be an adult one day and wish that I didn't do that, or that I set him up for a more healthy future as an adult, because that's a gift that I have the power to give him.
No, that's super important. And I think as a parent, as I mentioned again, I don't have kids, but I will think that as a parent, there's so many decisions that you have to continuously made for your child's evolution and better life and future life, that things do become harder. But I think at the end of the day, as you said, it's like, how would you want to see your kid as an adult? I mean, instant gratification, and like they're crying, or, you know, they want to be like their friends, or they want the iPad or the phone. And maybe at this point, it's easier to give it to them, but seeing it as, you know, how they're gonna become, how their health will evolve with these little things that we know already is changing our bodies. And so I think it's important to really think about all those things, because you are the parent. I always say, you're the parent, you have the power. You know, the kid is not just going to go eat junk food by themselves because they don't have the money. But if you buy them, they will eat it. So it's one of those things, right? You have the power to change your kids because they're little now. And so you're in the control. And as hard as it seems, I think thinking, you know, from you have told us and other experts have told us, I think it's worth it to hold up on
definitely.
certain things.
I think that the general society's perspective of how children should behave is changing. That, you know, say if a family is traveling on a bus or a train, children yell sometimes and can't wait sometimes, but now we don't experience children necessarily yelling and not being able to wait, because they're pacified in a way by this tool or for entertainment or immediate information or whatever they are using an iPad or the phone for. And we've lost touch with what children are maybe really like and the processes they have to go through to be able to learn to wait or to be bored and then get a good idea and to explore or to be curious. I think there's a way too big emphasis in the younger years at schools on children being digitally, you know, proficient. And they're finding out already that these children, they might be able to use an iPad in 4th grade, but they can't balance on a rock or a beam. They have no balance skills.
Yes.
or their fine motor skills don't allow them to perform certain tasks because they haven't been playing in mud or climbing trees or balancing on rocks or whatever kids want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by excluding these iPhones and iPads, at least, you know, putting them into some moderation will open up space, empty time that the child gets to fill with their own curiosity and just having a childhood. Because it is very adult, isn't it, to sit with a piece of technology but not use it for an adult purpose.
Yeah.
I think that my husband and I have to learn as well to let the kids be bored sometimes and provide them with a lot of craft tools and provide small environments. We have a property, but we work to provide little environments that can foster play so that they have somewhere to play.
Yeah. And it's important because, as you mentioned, there's other skills being developed by being outside, by playing, by being just a kid, which I think a lot of kids, especially here in America, they sit.
Mm-hmm.
Their life is so sedentary. And I think in all ways that you could see it, it's not healthy. You know, they need to move, they need to run around, they need to master other motor skills that as a kid they need for when they're adults. So I think I know being a parent might be difficult for a lot of people, especially when it comes to like economical distress and all these things. But I think we'll be doing a disservice to our kids, just sitting them in the room or in the living room with an iPad or in front of the TV. I think most of us at our age, we didn't grow up like that. I mean, I grew up on the streets. My mom will have a hard time bringing me and my brothers inside the house because we just wanted to play and play with the neighbors and run around and all these things. And I think we're just not giving them that opportunity to our future generations to do that, which is like so important, to just in many ways, I think.
I also think it just sounds expensive doing all the modern things too, because then, you know, how many TV screens do you have, or do you pay money? It sounds like thousands of, I don't even know how much these things cost anymore, but it sounds like thousands of dollars. And if you have 3 children, are you supposed to have 3 iPads now? Or, you know?
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I
Our
mean,
kids can't even share a stick, and you know, let alone something as attractive as an iPad. So
yes, I mean, yeah, that's a whole truth. And I mean, yeah, I mean, for all the parents that are listening, this is a cheaper way to raise your
it's actually
kids.
cheaper, and nothing breaks that's important. And you know, actually, like on a serious note, I think that it's expensive to have illness.
Yes.
And if, you know, it seems like you might have to, I don't know what costs money about this lifestyle, because it is just about being outside or moving your location, not moving your house, but as in moving your body out outside the corner of the door or onto the foot pavement just outside. It should be quite simple. And I do know that there's a lot of people just not in the eczema world yet, because I think I'm the first one that's bringing this quantum health into eczema. But within the quantum health world, there's a lot of people who've been practicing the blue blockers, the earthing, the morning sun, the cleaning up the house from all of these, what we call toxic or junk inputs. And they're having amazing success. And it really is astonishing, but not surprising at the same time, that people love quantum health practices because they're so powerful.
Yeah. No, I mean, this whole even circadian rhythm, which is like we kind of like all learn in school, we know what it does, or at least the basics, and it's just some of the basics for a healthier life. If your hormones are all over the place, your body, it's not going to work correctly. And these are some simple ways to put our body in track, reset every morning, let our body, be in touch with nature and all these things. So, and they're free. It's really free. You could do it outside your house.
But I understand that it's not always easy. I do, because we've been there. We lived on the 45th floor in Dubai. Like we haven't been living like this forever. We had to change.
Right.
And there's some things that sometimes in winter you would rather have a brighter house or be able to do some finer work. But the overall, like even my husband says that his sleep has improved. And that even him personally, even if our child wasn't here or wasn't sick anymore, he doesn't want to go back. It's not temporary. This is something that we're in for life, because it helps us on all these other issues. I mean, I had polycystic ovarian disease, PCOS, before having our first child. Now I don't have it anymore. I have no cysts. I have 0 cysts and 0 symptoms. So this lifestyle has obviously helped me with my own condition.
Yeah.
Which is really lovely.
Yes, of course. And it's great because, as you mentioned, this lifestyle, it helps so many other diseases. What are some of the illnesses that you've seen within your community that have helped others?
Oh, I don't know. Pretty much any disease that has a metabolic aspect, autoimmune aspect, in the course that we've done.
Yeah.
There's all the modern diseases. It helps with diabetes, because diabetes is connected to the blue light.
Right.
Blue light increases your insulin, and heart disease. Also, when I was working at Novo Nordisk, we used to get a daily newsletter in our inbox with some science in it. And because Novo Nordisk was going into the field of obesity, we would get news on obesity. And one of the doctors that was in an article said, we don't know, this was actually in 2016, I think, we don't know what causes obesity, but there's something going on. All we know is that if we want to make a rat fat, we leave the lights on in the lab, in the cage, 24 hours a day.
Wow.
So another light issue.
Yeah.
Hashimoto's is also listed. I mean, have a look also at Jack Cruise's page. You can, if one of your listeners has a condition, a good thing to do would be to search Jack Cruise and then write in the condition and see if there's a thread on his forum, which is public, to see if there's any clues about that. You can even look up eczema. He has some hypothesis about eczema as well, specifically on the deprogramming of the T cells.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I mean, it really blows my mind away of how simple things can get improved, which is just look at the sunrise, stay outside, get some sun throughout the day. It's just so cool. It's so amazing. It doesn't cost nothing. It makes you feel good. And you're in touch with nature. I mean, how easy can it get,
Yeah, it's been life-changing for us, and to the point where it's become like my passion now. I don't want to go back to my career anytime soon, because I'm so obsessed with learning more for myself, but also I've seen more kids with eczema just in my local community, and it breaks my heart to see that it's not treated sufficiently in the mainstream paradigm.
Yeah.
And I have some knowledge now that I think is a missing link. So one of my passions now, it's almost like a calling for me, is to get out in the world and spread this information to see if we can really make a difference in those statistics, because it's 1 in 5 kids under 12 months having eczema now.
That's a lot.
And do you want to hear? It's 1 in 3 in Australia.
No. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids that are like suffering with the eczema, and it's not an easy thing when you're a kid.
I predict that it will compound, or it will accumulate generation after generation, because I think the effect of the mother's environment before pregnancy and during pregnancy is not helping.
Right.
So once I got my environment cleaned up for second and third pregnancy, I saw that these pregnancies, it could have ended up that way anyway. Right. Could have also been that our son grew out of it, but I'm convinced that the lifestyle changes we've made have had it's the main reason why we overcame eczema, both naturally. We didn't have to go down this path of medication.
Yeah,
that's the reason.
I mean, it's amazing, and it's great that you actually almost put your life into this like scientific test that it has come to have like very good results with your kids, with you, with your husband. I mean, it's one of those that you're trying something and it's making you feel good and everything, it's going well. Why not?
Yeah.
So that's great. No, I love all this information. I think this is information that, I think it will help a lot of people, especially because, as I keep mentioning, it is something that you could just do freely and your whole life. And it's easy and simple. Most of the time, as you say, if you live in a building, it becomes a little bit difficult here and there, but not impossible.
I wanted to mention one more thing about living inside. There's actually one more thing that you can do. So first of all, I'm looking this way because we've got a window. Windows actually filter out red and infrared light as well as UV light. Right. So even having the bright light coming through a window, it's not very wholesome in a way. It's almost as if you have a blue LED shining there. So what you can do, apart from opening the window a small amount, is actually have red light as a supplement in your indoor environment. And there's been studies done on mice, which isn't always comparable to humans. There's been studies done on mice that have eczema, and they get exposed to near infrared light for 2 weeks. And then they take a cross section of their skin, and all of the itch sensing cells have withdrawn from the skin surface, and the skin's thickness has gone back to normal. So eczema is also treatable with near infrared light, which is in firelight, candlelight, and the sun in the morning all day long. Right. But that if you can bring the red light into your home, I think that would also be a very good move for supporting your family and children with eczema.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point too. And I mean, for anybody that's listening, red lights, you can literally buy them on Amazon if you like. There's a bunch of tools and things that you can get there. It's not hard to get. I am a massage therapist, and we use the red light too for like inflammation and pain. Yeah. So like sometimes on treatments, we are like treating the shoulder or whatever, we'll put the red light right next to the painful area or whatever for like 10-15 minutes, and that actually helps too. So it's something that you could definitely get easily. It's not as hard as maybe you might think to get.
You know that the water that the mitochondria make, the easy water, which is exclusion zone water, that actually creates like a battery for the cell. And that battery gets bigger when red light is shone on it. And so that's also another benefit of red light, is that it's actually going into the mitochondria and increasing mitochondrial efficiency. Nice. So it all ties together.
Yes. I mean, we keep doing these practices, right? Because it goes like, you go to school and they're like, use red light for inflammation, use red light for pain. but going into the actually scientific reason why, I think it's great. And I love that you're telling us all this. I think it's great. It gives us a bigger picture of how really things work. So that's super cool.
Yeah. And we have one other element, one other sort of pillar in all of our work to support our bodies is also we eat seasonally, and
Yes.
you would call it like a seasonal circadian, it's not a diet, but the way of eating that is also trying to encourage a match between the food. The electrons in the food contain information about where that food has grown or walked, and it has to be coherent, like globally coherent with the information that our body is receiving from the sunrise and the sun during the day and the darkness at night. So if you're eating a summertime food in winter, you're actually confusing your body and creating inflammation, because the banana in Denmark, it doesn't grow in Denmark, and it's got photons from the light entering another place on the planet. So we're really messing with nature when we eat food that's not local and seasonal. And so, I mean, we've attacked the problem pretty much from all angles in terms of quantum health to make sure that we have this wholesome inputs.
No, I mean, it makes just so much sense. I mean, my grandma and my mom have always, they raised us on food that it was seasonal, because they will go to the farmer's market, and the farmers will
so
just
lucky.
bring, and the farmers will just really bring whatever the crops were doing at that time, and that's what we will eat. And that will be all year long for, that's how I was raised. But then when we moved to the States, there's so much abundance of everything from all over the world that, as you mentioned, you could eat bananas every day for the whole day, for the whole year. And you could eat blueberries the whole year. And how, now it's so trendy, like, oh, make your berry smoothie, and you could eat berries all year long, or you could eat tropical fruits all year long if you want, because we have so much access to. You could get them frozen, you could get it exported from, God knows where. But it's cool. It's very important to know these things, because for starters, it's so much cheaper if you eat local and seasonal, and you're gonna help the farmers. It's kind of like this like ripple goodness of everybody. You eat seasonal, you help the farmer, they help the soil, they help the environment. It's cheaper. So it's like all this awesomeness when you do things kind of like the right way when it comes to like balance and seasonal and all of our environments. I think it's great.
It's
and
really
I love
good.
that you mentioned that.
Really good quantum explanations why eating food out of season creates chaos in the cell. And if any of your listeners are curious about it, they can research a little bit about deuterium in general, deuterium depleted water, but deuterium, because the foods that grow under UV light have a heavier form of water. Wow. And this goes into the body and does different activities. And so your body actually is supposed to have not just a daily circadian rhythm, but actually we have an annual rhythm. So the mitochondria are behaving and doing different signaling in winter versus summer. So in a way, I kind of see the year as day and night as well. So summer is a time for growth, and winter is a time for healing and repair and rest.
Yeah.
And so we want to give our bodies a chance to register that it is winter and that carbs are becoming scarce, instead of confusing and giving these wrong signals.
Yeah, for sure.
And another trend that I see that could be harmful for children is not including meat and seafood in their diet. because seafood in particular is the only DHA, the omega-3, is really important for carrying electrons or holding electrons in the cell membrane. And even supplements actually don't work. So we need to give our kids seafood to make sure that they can hold electrons in their bodies.
What's your take on, I know I was reading this little article that flaxseed oil has had some of the most, I guess, omega-3 for people that are vegetarian. Will that be a good exchange if they don't eat seafood?
As far as I've read, it cannot enter into the cell membrane and hold the electrons in the place that it's needed. So it might be omega-3, but it cannot. You need the DHA from the seafood. And some people have tried to encapsulate the DHA from the seafood. Yes. But as far as I'm aware, the tests on these have a very high rate that they have become rancid due to light and storage. So, I mean, if you find the one that wasn't rancid in all those tests, try it. But we have access to wild caught prawns and salmon in Denmark, and we also have access to oysters in certain months of the year. So we don't really take a chance on that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
What I know, I mean, you have access to that. That's kind of like your environment. It's close to you. How about all those other people around the world that have never even eat seafood because they live in certain places of the world? Mm-hmm. Do you think, I mean, talking about, and that's just me rambling now, mm-hmm. But do you think, we're talking about season and how our environment is, do you think that they might probably have some other things that they're eating since they're not close to the coast, mm-hmm. or they don't have access to fish?
Yeah. So in summertime, we get, for example, with vitamin D, we get our vitamin D from the sun. But as the UV intensity drops and disappears for us, we start to see mushrooms in nature. And the edible mushrooms are a fantastic source of vitamin D and salmon. So you could probably have a look and see what the local sources of vitamin D and the DHA are for that area. But I also try to remember that we all, originated from ancestors who evolved in the East African Rift with access to hunting and also closer to the coast seafood. So if we are to respect our body's evolutionary needs, we kind of need to supply it with these sources of nutrition that we evolved under. If you can't do it, or if it's you don't like the taste of seafood, that's a choice. There's lots of things we also do, I suppose, that aren't good for us because we want to go to a party and have the welcome drink, or and forget it all for a while and relax and have fun, because life is also about having fun and not stressing about some of these things. And in a way, we've gotten to a point with our eczema management where it doesn't take over everything. It's just sort of subtly integrated in our normal everyday life. And that's sort of the point where I'd like, my clients to get to, so that it just becomes normal to walk outside with bare feet or whatever. But I think have a look, join some of the communities, ask the specific questions. If you have options in your supermarket and you're trying to decide, do I get the canned salmon or do I get the canned sardines, or you're worried about the can, or you're worried about the mercury in the ocean, those questions have all been asked, and join some of these quantum health communities. And I wouldn't let something like that block you from getting started.
Right.
And maybe if the seafood thing is a bit hard, leave that until later, until you get some success with the other lifestyle changes, and tackle it as, you know, the third or fourth thing.
Yeah, of course. I think being informed and see what fits to everybody's lifestyle, I think it's important. And start little. Start just to go outside and get some sun. It's gonna make you feel great. It's awesome to be outside, and and it's free. I keep saying every all that because we go through so many modalities and treatments that you have to pay for. But I love this one because it makes such a big impact in our lives, and it's just like literally outside of our door. So it's amazing. So it's great.
That's great.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. I love all the information. I think uh, everything that we talk about it, everybody will be thinking like, oh, you know, this is good. It's outside. We're gonna be. It's thought provoking. So even if they're not doing it, I'm sure they're gonna be thinking about it. If you have any more questions, you can always reach out to our guests too. And before we leave, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
Well, I just wanted to share that there's actually a lot of people in the quantum health community who are really excited about this topic as well. So if any of your listeners aren't really, you know, having a problem with eczema, but maybe something else I've said, you know, gels with them that makes sense, but they want to maybe solve a specific other problem, I would say have a look at the Quantum Biology Collective. There's a list of practitioners there. Some of them are on Instagram, like Carrie B Wellness, Catherine Clinton. Who else do we have? Heather Shepherd is one of the teachers from the course. She actually has a Sunlight RX, and she is a coach that teaches about circadian seasonal eating as well. And Nathan Walls, he's helping executives get more energy. And so just a big promotion for all my friends in the community. And there's a lot of us trying to make quantum health like famous and fill in those missing links for everybody with all of their different issues, and see if we can make a world that is sort of a better place for our kids to grow up and have healthier lighting in offices and in schools. That would be so cool to see that one day.
Yeah, I think the more aware we all are, I think we will definitely make little changes as we go. And yes, definitely look all them up. I know Heather Shepherd was in our show not too long ago. We love her. So shout out to her too. We will definitely put all your information on the show notes. But if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
So what I have going right now is a program called SHIFT ECZEMA, because it's all about shifting the paradigm. It's a 6-week program where there's 6 episodes where I go through the paradigm shift, circadian rhythm biology, mitochondria. I go through quantum nourishment, the immune system, and a big wrap up with lots of practical tips for parents, especially. My clients have been parents, but also adults with eczema. Even though my niche is helping, you know, the families, I can also help adults. And then along with that, there's 6 coaching calls. So to ask all those questions, to listen to other people's questions, and have a look on my website. It's angelajensen.com. And I have an Instagram as well, Angela_Jensen111. And I am in a phase of building up. So I hope to also offer, different price range, so that people can come in at different price ranges. But at the moment, I have this program which covers a lot. And if anything today spoke to your audience, I would just be so happy to hear from any of them and see if we can help some babies not have eczema for longer than necessary.
Yes, for sure. I will put all her information in the show notes so everybody can reach out to Angela. I mean, it's amazing information. And if you're suffering from eczema, I think it's worth it. I mean, I'm sure you try the steroids and all these other things that are so common for this illness, but give it a try to something else. It might be just worth it for your body. We are our biggest investment, so why not? Thank you, Angela, for being here today. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, you guys know where to find me, alexbalga.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. Remember also, my book is out. You can buy it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's called Parents Are Greatest Teachers. If you like it, leave me a comment, leave me a review, DM me if you have any questions. Let's keep on the conversation. And thank you everyone for being here today. Remember, be open-minded. We're all different, and there's a lot of different things that we can do for ourselves. Thank you everyone again, and have a blessed day. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Bye.